Good evening and welcome to the October 1st, 2024 Lower Frederick Township Board of Supervisors General Meeting. Everyone who is on the roll call is present. Supervisor Yiser is attending the meeting via Zoom. I'm going to just skip the announcements today since we have a very hefty schedule. They are on your agenda. Just a reminder about public comment. So public comments are limited to 3 minutes. That is 3 minutes. And you can read all the rest. All right, first item, administrative action. Oh, I'm sorry. Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now we can start our meeting agenda. First item is administrative actions. We have 3 sets of minutes to approve, June 25th, July 2nd, and July 23rd. Do any members of the board have any edits or changes to any of those? Is it okay if we address them as one motion? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve those 3 sets of minutes?
Also move.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Supervisor Halter made the motion. Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm assuming, I didn't hear you, but I'm assuming you said aye. Thank you. Okay. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved unanimously. All right. Treasurer's report.
Okay, so this is through September 30th. Current 2024 current EIT is at $828,699, which is $48,000 over budget, up 2.2 from last year. Real estate transfers at $135,204, which is $5,000 under budget. That's down 16.4 from last year, and our current and delinquent real estate tax is at $858,000, which is $13,000 under budget. It's up 14.8% from last year. Total revenue $2.084 million, which is $18,000 over budget. It's up 3.4% from last year. Total expenses is $1.955 million, which is $186,000 under budget, and it's up 11.4 from last year. The net income as of September 30th for the general fund is $132,786. The township's budgeted net income is negative $75,013. The net income performance is $208,000 over budget. Revenue is over budget by 1.1%. The township is running on or above budget for most line items. Notable exceptions are interest in EIT, surpassing budget by a total of 9.3%, while building permits, real estate, and fire hydrant assessment are below budget by 5.9%. We have received 86.6% of our 2024 budgeted revenue. Township expenses are on or close to budget. Most of the line items, expenses are under budget by 8.7%. Expenses are under primarily for police and public work wages, health insurance, legal and engineering. Expenses are over for the admin office, technology, building repair and utilities, public works, vehicle repair, and planning, zoning, other service charges. We have spent 68.8% of our 2024 budgeted expense. The general capital fund has not changed since last month other than interest. Sewer fund, overall revenue is surpassing budget by 36.8% or $364,000. As reported in July, we received our sewer connection tap and fee contribution from the Farmview Estate Prestige Development. We've received 39 sewer connection tap and fee so far in 2024 as part of the Fulmer Road Riverside Avenue sewer extension, with 1 property with 4 EUs who's utilizing the pavement plan. That is not part of that number. Expenses are on or close to budget for most line items. Repair and maintenance continues to be well under so far this year, while sludge hauling, information technology, supplies, chemicals, sewer line extension, and transponding are over budget. The refunds of prior year revenues is for the refunds for the dormant EDUs return this year. Sewer expenses are over budget by 7.3%. The net income is $421,000. which is 290,000 over budget. The fund has earned 110.8% of its revenue budget and spent 70.5% of its expense budget. As far as the sewer capital fund, the flood barrier project was completed in August. The net income is 15,267 with expenses totaling 226,000 so far in 2024. Liquid fuels has remained unchanged from last month other than interest. However, the net income is negative 54,000 or 55,000, which is 169 or 170,000 under budget. That's from not doing the paving project this year. Open space fund, the net income is 85,000. Total dollars with current allocation for property conservation and grant. The county agricultural preservation is 247,000. Expenses so far have been for EIT commission appraisals. The ARP and COVID relief fund so far in 2024, 112,000 has been spent with 12,500 in interest earned. The total available dollars with current allocation for the many projects is 73,420. Are there any questions?
I just have one question. What do you attribute the change in the EIT receipts this year as opposed to last year?
What I'm guessing is as we go through this transition, essentially what I would believe is we're replacing residents who may be retired with residents who are working. I do think this is probably the effect of Arcadia Station also as a newer subdivision. But generally speaking, it's kind of it's a guess because you always have people retiring and kind of, but that would be my guess. You know, and I would expect that to an extent when these current subdivisions get built out eventually, but at some point it'll level off. Usually EIT gets to a point where it remains relatively kind of stagnant at some point, but.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Jason, this is Chuck. Regarding the ARPA COVID relief, just my understanding is the 73,420. That's money that needs to be allocated this year in contracts, right?
Yes, sir.
And also, we had discussed at a meeting earlier this year about doing a self-liquidating debt report for the sewer system sometime in the fall.
Yeah. Yes. My expectation was to have that as part of the budget rollout.
Okay. That's it. Thanks.
Anything else? No. Okay. That brings us to payment of bills. We have bills in the amount of $168,138.41 for the general fund, $32,129.65 for the sewer fund, $8,754 even in the sewer capital fund, and for ARPA COVID relief, $12,168.80. Do any of those include anything that has to be pulled out?
No, Marla.
Okay, great. Any questions from the board? No? Okay, are we ready to vote to authorize payment and sign the checks? All right, I'll make that motion. Will someone make a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Supervisor Hexter made the motion. Supervisor Holter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right. Professional staff reports, engineer.
Thank you. So the first 5 items on my report this evening appear later on the agenda, so I'll delay addressing them until then. Some informational items follow. Prestige Builders, also known as Farmview Estates. The work is underway at this 42-home development on Little Road. The landscaping berms have been graded on each side of the project. Project blasting activity is expected to conclude next week, and installation of sewer pipe in Little Road continues. At Melbourne Hill, site clearing and grading has started, and it's supported by installation of erosion and sediment control measures. Over at Arcadia Station, the developer must still replace trees and bushes that did not survive. All other punch list items have been resolved. Once this work is complete, we anticipate the developer will request closeout and dedication, at which time the 18-month project maintenance period will begin. The MS4 annual report has been electronically submitted to DEP, documenting township compliance with permit conditions. We've talked before about Spring Mount Road repairs. I've been advised that Saks and Sons intends to perform these limited pavement base repairs on Spring Mount Road and Main Street in early October. When a specific day is established, information will be posted on the township website. I want to tell you about fog seal on Audrey Lane and Rose Lane cul-de-sacs. AMS placed fog seal on 2 cul-de-sacs this month, and that was at no charge to the township. Fog seal is the addition of another layer of emulsion on top of the chip seal. Audrey and Rose Lanes were both sealed with chips this summer, and while chip seal packs down relatively quickly on the busier roads with through traffic, cul-de-sac streets have less traffic and more turning movements, so the stones don't lock down quite as well and as soon. The township had some complaints about loose stones, and AMS offered to fog seal at no charge so the township can evaluate the benefits of this process for future projects. The other items on my report either haven't changed since the last report or simply address single-family homes and grading permits, so I will not continue unless directed otherwise by the board, and I conclude the engineer's report at that point.
Any questions from the board on any items?
No, I was just, Chuck Geiser, just gonna ask, our engineer Carol, you sat down and had a meeting regarding a possible Monco 2040 grant.
Yes.
Is that something that, I don't know where we are in the process. I guess we would want to get a quote as to what it would cost for you to spec out that project.
So that's actually later on the agenda this evening. I
Okay.
met this past week with the committee that's been spearheading that project, and I prepared a memorandum that's in the Dropbox that talks about 2 different options on how we can proceed with that project. And if the board so desires at that time, they can give me direction to continue forward with the process. And I think that's item C on tonight's agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Solicitor report. Nothing. Okay. Township staff reports, police.
Thank you. For the month of September, we had 358 calls for service. Police department conducted 70 traffic stops with 58 citations being issued, or 82% of the stops resulting in a citation being issued. We've received multiple complaints of speed throughout all areas of the township. In our effort to try to combat these complaints, we conducted 33 separate speed details throughout the township. The police department and the township administration offices received multiple complaints for Game Farm Road and Smith. We put the speed data capture sign out there. The results of the data that we got back, it's a 40-mile-an-hour speed zone. The average speed was 37.38 miles per hour. 65.76% of the vehicle traffic was in compliant or slowing as they approached this section of the roadway. 2 members of the police department completed the officer resilience training that I spoke about last month regarding the mental health. The remaining members of the department will attend over the next several weeks. Officer Karminski attended the Basic Special Weapons and Tactics Training Course, or SWAT. I had the opportunity to attend the Department of Public Safety's Safety Information Session, which was an overview of just the different available resources if we have problems here in the township. 2 officers are going to be attending the Community Anti-Threat Officer and Community Anti-Threat Team Training. The goal of this training is to stop acts of targeted violence by partnering with law enforcement at the county, state, and federal level. And that's all I have for my report, but any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to address.
Thank you. All right, fire company?
All right, Scott Angstead, the fire chief. For last month, September, we had a total of 18 calls, 7 in Lower Frederick, 2 in Upper Salford, 2 in Limerick, 3 in Upper Frederick, 1 in Lower Salford, 1 in Marlboro, 2 in Schwanksville. We had 3 different training sessions that I can remember, actually. Prior to the storms that were supposed to happen a couple weeks ago, we did a water refresher class over at Upper Salford with Upper Salford and Station 89 Harleysville. The 3 of us are kind of working together to really get much better at water rescue training. We had a hose and interior fire attack training at Upper Salford. They have a house that's at the corner of Schwenksville and Grubb that we have access to and we can go in and use. And then last week we did a info thing with a salesman. Upper Salford is getting new hose and nozzles. We had in for a grant that we were turned down for. We were planning on doing the same. One thing that was interesting about it is the technology has changed so much that basically your nozzles and your hose sort of have to be matched together because certain ones work with certain types of hose. And if you have the wrong one, when you're using the hose, it can get kinks in it and you have less water flow and less pressure on the water, doesn't reach quite as far. And then this past weekend, there were 5 or 6 of our members that took a high angle rope rescue class at the firehouse. It was both Saturday and Sunday. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ambulance?
Okay, so report is from August. In Lower Frederick, they had 20 service calls with 151 through the end of August. In their primary coverage area, they did 32 with a total of 494 year-to-date through August. And mutual aid, which is outside their primary coverage area, they did 44 and have done 411 calls through August.
Great, thank you. Public Works?
Okay, so Public Works performed the following, actually, I'm gonna share, because I know we've been talking about flood barriers, and I would imagine some people may not be aware what that actually is. Okay. Okay, so for the month of September, they did 1 UNO, some pump sewer inspection. They patch paved Creekside Way, had preventive maintenance for the generators was completed. They mowed the sewer right-of-ways and cleared down trees. Certification for the hoist at the sewer plant was done. They painted speed enforcement lines with the police department, worked on budget quotes, replaced the blower motor at the sewer plant, and they did a test run of an installation of the flood barriers so that they can get more familiar if we do incur some type of flooding. So as you can see, this is an outside view of what these flood barriers are, and then I thought it would be, to see what it looks like on the inside. So since we've heard a lot about the flood barrier project over the last few months, I just thought it would be, so you guys can see what that actually means, because I will say I was not sure what these were supposed to look like prior to seeing them here, so.
Okay, thank you. That brings
Well,
us to, sorry.
Jason, just question, do we know how long it takes to set those barriers up?
Tommy didn't give me a time, how long it took.
I heard from Tommy at least 6 hours for 2 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is one of those things I would expect they need to get probably a little more familiar. But that's to the point when it, if we are getting, flooding's coming or whatever. So I do believe he's going to want to try to speed that up, but.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Township Board and Commission reports, Environmental Advisory Council. Is there someone on Zoom?
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, maybe just speak up a little bit.
Okay. The EAC met on September 9th and discussed subcommittee reports. The Green Energy Committee discussed incentives or other ways to encourage green building in our township. These incentives would be to encourage more energy efficiency, building material conservation, and improve neighborhood ecology. At this point, we have not come up with things the EAC could do directly to incentivize builders. Increasing demand by homeowners, home buyers for these items may be the most powerful incentive for builders. The EAC's education to the public may be our only way to support increased green energy building. The Stormwater Committee discussed the basin site visit with Perkiomen Watershed Conservancy. Volunteer projects were suggested to remove invasive plants that have been tagged and perhaps remove silt buildup at the inflow area. A member will visit the basin after a rain and bring back inflow and outfall information. Home water testing was also discussed. The working group members will bring back more information about certified labs and information on what parameters residents can and should test for that we can use for possible future outreach. The Outdoor Lighting Committee brought in examples and reported on the use of red-colored outdoor lamps. The lamp's longer wavelength light is less disruptive to wildlife and contribute less to light pollution. They are affordable and can be purchased at your local big box store. The EAC continued its review of the township's property maintenance code for weeds, section 111.2Q, which could discourage residents from promoting native plants on their properties. We reviewed codes from area municipalities and met with the code enforcement officer and discussed the numbers and types of complaints that have been received by the township regarding this issue. We will continue our discussion and hope to provide some recommendations to the board soon. We planned our Fall Fest activity table for children and their families. We will be offering an activity for seed saving for 4 native plants. Families will harvest seeds and take them home with instructions for storing and growing. And we encourage everybody to come out this Saturday. And finally, for this month's Did You Know? As the trees are beginning to show a tinge of color, we are offering 3 links on what you should and should not do with leaves after they fall. The first link is to an Atrium Health article about potential health impacts of breathing smoke from burning leaves. The second is an article from the USDA on the benefits of composting leaves, or even better, leaving them in place. And the third also touts the benefits of leaving the leaves, but also discusses other things you can do to create habitat for overwintering pollinators and other beneficial creatures. And that's our report for the month.
Thank you. I think that water home testing information will be useful to a lot of us who have wells. Open Space Committee?
Well, good evening. This is Andrew Lang for the Open Space Committee. We met on September 11th, and at this meeting, we were given a presentation on a piece of property in the township that the owner is exploring possibly selling and wanted to see if the Open Space Committee was interested. We are still going to be in further discussion with that landowner, so we're not disclosing any names at this time, and we will await further developments there, but we'll be reassessing and evaluating this property at our October meeting and just seeing if we want to pursue that further. We also reviewed and revisited some of our outreach materials that we've been drafting and working on with the intent of having some final materials ready for October to be shared out. And at present, there is a vacancy on the committee with the departure of one of our former members. So we're going to be looking to fill that in the next coming weeks as well. That's what I have. I can answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you. Park and Recreation?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Park Board next meeting is next Monday night. Our September activities went very well. Saturday, September 14th, we started our walking event with a Perkiomen hike on the Historic Railroad Society walk. It was very well attended. It was very informative. The feedback has been very positive. I think it's a good start for the Perky Pacers walking group, and I thank Becky for her planning and organization of that. And anyone who has any ideas for future walks, please send those to parkboard.org and let us know, and we'll see if we can get it on the schedule. Later on the same day, on the 14th, we had Movie on the Mountain. We showed Wish. Parking lot was full. We had about 120 cars, estimated 500 people, biggest show yet. I thank Rick Buckman at Spring Mountain Adventures and Upper Frederick and Upper Salford Townships for teaming with us to make that event a great success. On September 21st, we had our other book club. It was again well attended, had I believe 14 people from what I heard back. I was not able to be there. Well attended, good discussion, and I thank the team, Katie, Crystal, Becky, and Monica for their planning and organization of that. Our next book club, which I think will be our last for this year, is on Saturday, October 19th at 10:30 at Cuddy Pavilion. That book will be Mrs. Quinn's Rise to Fame. And please come out and enjoy some free munchies and some good conversation and discussion. On Saturday, this Saturday, October 5th, we're finishing up our event schedule for 2024 with Fall Fest at Foy Park, starting at noon until 3 o'clock. We'll have lots of activities for the kids. This year, we're going to do rock painting instead of pumpkin painting. We're going to be looking at inspirational rocks. We'll also have kayaking on the Perky, the ever popular hay rides by Saxon Sons. We're going to have the grill and pizza being run by Moshe's and ice cream by Downtown Scoop. And I thank the Public Works crew for helping us in preparation of Foy for Action. And I especially thank Tom Manning for his use of his personal trailer again, which really makes things a lot easier for us. And in support of the police department, we also support the trunk or treat. That will be at Foy Park also on Sunday, October 20th. Rain date is Sunday, October 27th, noon to 3, again at Foy Park. We'll have Van Pelt hot dog truck and waffle cabin, loads of fun, and a great community event. And that's all I've got right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, that walk was fabulous. It was a really good job. All right, Planning Commission?
On here. The Planning Commission met on September the 19th. We took up as our first agenda item the adoption of the revision to this single road, our single access roads, which was passed, of course, later in the month by the Board of Supervisors. So we had recommended that after many months of work on that ordinance, part of the subdivision and land development code. And our second agenda item was the Montco implementation grant. Carol's going to highlight that a little later tonight. We did authorize the working group consisting of Mr. Schmidt, myself, and Mr. Pocus to meet with Carol. We had a meeting on the 25th of September, and we were able to discuss that project, so you'll find out some more details as Carol approaches that later in the meeting. We had an informational from Chairman Hector about the Central Perkiomen Valley Regional Planning Commission's activities. Highlighted in that report was the information about their comprehensive plan at the regional level being pushed forward, information about the artisans development, which will come, believe it or not, to the Planning Commission in October, and an informational about the Landis project down on Route 29 in Perkiomen Township. We concluded our meeting with a discussion about the Planning Commission moving forward with discussions as to how we can further the planning for Zieglerville Village. We, of course, have a plan, comprehensive plan that has some general goals which we'd like to achieve as a township. And the Planning Commission has felt inclined to try to make that more definitive and try to, bear down on some of the things that we can achieve in the near future. And we would like to start the brainstorming for getting ideas together for that. And by the way, the Planning Commission would, certainly love to entertain suggestions from the Board of Supervisors to help us with that process, as well as the public. If you have any good ideas as to what you would like to see happen in the Zieglerville Village, historic preservation, connections, sidewalks, park amenities, and things of that nature, we'd certainly like to put it into our brainstorming session so we can get the best, recommendations and planning going for that. That concluded our meeting for September. Any questions? Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to the business portion of our meeting. First item is a request from Loctite Land Development to remove excess topsoil from the township, and also a revision to the approved paving plan.
I'll be happy to speak to that briefly.
Thank you, Carol.
So on topsoil removal, the applicant's contractor requests permission to remove approximately 1,100 cubic yards of excess topsoil from the property. This removal request is actually required by code. The Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance, Section 14545, advises that no topsoil shall be removed from the site or used as spoil without a permit issued by the township. And grading and excavations, Section 77-3, advises no topsoil may be removed from the site without written authorization from the township. So the request that was provided details the quantities of materials to be removed and lists the County Conservation District approved receiving locations as required by their NPDES permit. So we thank the contractor for providing this level of detail to comply with the code, and the board's decision tonight is as to whether or not to authorize this removal of topsoil. The second item you're considering for Loctite tonight is a revision to the pavement requirement. The applicant requested some areas that are proposed to be paved on the approved plan remain as a stone surfaced parking area or driveway. You might recall the applicant was granted a waiver allowing the proposed driveways and parking areas to be surfaced with stone or aggregate. And that was with a condition that areas that had slopes steeper than 7% be paved. This was intended to stabilize sloped areas against erosion. 2 areas of the new parking lot or driveway were identified on the approved plans to be paved. These areas have been installed as stone and the grading modified to be slightly less steep. These locations have been subject to some heavy rains without evidence of erosion. Therefore, we offer no objection to the applicant's request to relieve him of the requirement to pave these areas. So both these decisions are before the board this evening.
So when the applicant says, or when you say that some of those areas have been modified to be less steep, do you mean less than 7%? What are they now?
I haven't specifically measured those areas, but we have had a couple of heavy rains since they put this in, and they are stable.
But do you think that they are now less than 7%?
I can't speak to that honestly.
So they were, what were they before?
I think some of the areas were approaching 10% before, and they're definitely not as steep now.
Okay. Oh, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Susan
Okay, great. That answers my question. Thank you. Anything else from the board on this?
Marla, I assume that was the applicant who was speaking from the floor?
Yes, sorry. Would you like to identify yourself? If you could come to the, no one on Zoom can hear you, and make sure the green light is on. Thank you.
Richard Black, I'm the applicant. The grades are less than 7 as built.
Chuck, did you hear that?
Yep, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Do you have any other questions? Sorry, Chuck, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. Nope. Anyone else? Nope. Terry, are you going to recuse yourself or?
Yes, I will recuse myself from voting.
Okay, thank you. Then with no objections, would someone like to make a motion?
I move to grant the waiver request for the areas approved to be paved to remain as stoned areas as presented by the STA engineering letter dated 9/16 of 2024.
If I can just edit that motion, we're not granting a waiver, we're actually just permitting them to remove.
So it would be just grant the request.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And do you want to do the second part in the same motion?
No, actually, I have a question about that. Carol, could you read part of your report again as it applies to this, the topsoil remover from the contractor? Because it sounds a little bit differently than what's on what I have right here.
Yeah, so topsoil preservation, the subdivision and land development ordinance said, no topsoil shall be removed from the site or used as spoil without a permit issued by the township.
So just let me correct, I'm speaking to the part that says the topsoil removal request is required by ordinance 145-45 topsoil preservation, which advises that no topsoil shall be removed from the site or used as spoil without a permit issued by the township. The request details the quantities of material to be removed and lists the Montgomery County Conservation District approved receiving locations as required by their NPDES permits.
Correct.
But I believe what you said was a little bit different, but
There's also, I added in a second section of code, 77-3, which is essentially a parallel code. It says no topsoil may be removed from the site without written authorization by the township.
okay, so I remember back in 2021 when Metropolitan came to the township for Arcadia, and they wanted to remove about 3,000 cubic yards of topsoil.
Right.
And they came to the May 25th meeting. At that time, Mark Hudson had clarified for us that we actually do not have a permit form in order to issue that we would just be giving a letter of approval back to the developer in order to do that. So I don't think we can actually waive a permit if we don't have the form at that point.
So what you're really deciding tonight is do you authorize or do you give them permission to remove that topsoil?
So in addition, at the June 1st, they came back. And one of the supervisors on the board at the time asked if the permittee is required to show evidence of an approval of their approved ENS plans, the NPDES permit, and documentation from the Conservation District needs to be shown before the dirt leaves our site. And you confirm that those items are requirements. Can you confirm that we have received all 3 of those things for all 3 of the receiving sites?
We have received detail of the 3 receiving sites, the quantities that are going to them, and a representation from the contractor that they are NPDES permitted sites. If the board so desires, I can contact the Conservation District and confirm that with them as well.
I think that would be appropriate, and in addition, that one of the sites is actually located in Berks County, so we would be looking for the Berks County Conservation District info.
We can do that.
Thank you.
So should we then revise the second part of the motion to include the caveat that it will take effect once we have confirmation from the relevant conservation districts?
In other words, if Carol's research finds that everything is in order, are we okay with it? Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm proposing is that we go ahead and approve both parts of the motion, which is allowing the areas to remain as stoned areas, and secondly, to allow the excess topsoil to be removed once our engineer receives confirmation from the relevant conservation districts that they in fact have the correct permitting. That's what I was proposing.
Yeah, well, why don't we just make it easy and do two separate motions? How's that?
Okay, all right. So we have a motion for the first part, which is to allow the areas to be paved remaining as stone. Do I have a second?
Also move.
Oh, you've already moved
I
it.
already moved it.
Yeah. you can't
I'll second.
it. Okay, so Supervisor Halter made the motion and Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I think, Terry, you can vote on this. Terry can vote on this. Yes. All right, any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right, so that's the first part. As I proposed rewording the second part, is that acceptable, Solicitor? Or do you have a different proposal?
I mean, you can just do the motion as written, or as I discussed changing, a motion to permit the removal of the topsoil conditioned upon the township engineer confirming that the receiving sites have all the necessary permits from the appropriate conservation district.
All right, we have that wording. I will so move. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Supervisor Hexter made the motion. Supervisor Halter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? So the vote on that is 4 in favor, and we had 1 recusal by Mr. Sachs. Okay. And you are very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but do not feel you have to. None of us will be hurt if you sneak out. All right. Next item on the agenda is a discussion of the traffic garden project at Foy Park. Pam, do you want to take that? Or
I got it.
you going to take that,
Yeah, I'll
Jason?
take
Okay, great.
At their September 9th meeting, the Park and Recreation Board unanimously voted to not proceed with the traffic garden project at Foy Park. As previously stated per the resolution from Montgomery County Commissioners approving the project, the traffic garden shall be installed on the existing basketball court located in Foy Park, and the existing 4,300 square foot asphalt pad would be removed. Removal of the pad will cost approximately $18,000 as previously quoted. As I had previously reported to the board, I had a meeting with the Monco HHS representatives, and we would still have the grant if the board wants to move forward to install the traffic garden. It could also carry over to next year if we needed to. And as a side note, they also discussed an alternate site, which I believe the Park and Rec Board has mentioned as Coble Park. So what's in front of you is just deciding on whether or not to move forward with the traffic garden at Foy Park.
Well, I was at that park board meeting, and I heard that there was not a single member of the park board who was in favor of proceeding, given the recent conditions put on us by the county. So I'm in favor of following their advice and not going forward with the traffic garden, at least not at that park. Anyone else?
I would agree. So if we make a motion on this, I just have a question about how it's written here. I don't know if I think we're just choosing to not move forward with the traffic garden at Foy Park as opposed to rejecting the conditions given by the county commissioners via the resolution. I don't know if we can necessarily reject our conditions. Oh, we could reject the outcome of those conditions.
I think the diplomatic way would just be to state,
Exactly.
yes,
Okay.
where that the board has decided not to move forward with the project.
Chuck, do you have any comments?
No, I would just say that, yeah, I would just say, whatever that specific language is for the grant, to use that in the motion, that's all. Do not accept the grant from Jason, fill in the blank.
Do we have to officially reject the grant?
Yeah, I thought we were leaving it open in case we wanted to do it next year at Coble or something, if we could look at.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's,
okay.
that's what I understood.
Yeah,
The rejection from the park board was for doing it at Floyd Park, given the conditions and the additional expense that the township would incur.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't realize what I was saying. Okay.
yeah, I think the park board wants to leave it open for potentially doing it at a different venue in the future. So I think the motion would be
Not to proceed at this park.
not to proceed with the installation of the traffic garden at Foy Park. Would someone like to make that motion?
Also move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Supervisor Halter made the motion. Supervisor Sachs made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Next item is a request to authorize some work by our engineer to look at a Montco 2040 grant submission.
Jason, if you'd allow me to screen share, I can put an image up.
That would be great.
It's thinking about it. Yeah, the broken image here. There we go. That's a little better. Okay. So, last week I met with a working committee regarding the proposed sidewalk or trail along the frontage of Delphi Junction. And we started our discussion at the Township Building and then visited the property to walk potential walkway locations. So this image depicts the concepts, and I also offer some of my assessments. The base of the project discussion was to construct a 6-foot sidewalk. I'm looking for my mouse here. A 6-foot sidewalk in the grass strip in front of the Manning property. You might know it as Moshe's if you like to go there to eat. So a 6-foot grass strip, a 6-foot wide sidewalk in that grass strip. We'd have to meander the sidewalk as necessary to avoid existing utility poles and light standards. Relocation of the existing wooden Delphi Junction sign would be necessary. We'd need to provide accessible ramps at each driveway crossing, so that's a minimum of 3 ramps. And the southernmost parking spaces are on the county land there, and they're not quite configured in an appropriate manner, so I would suggest stopping the sidewalk at the southernmost driveway entrance and having conversation with the county about whether they'd like to continue anything from there. The intersection of Gravel Pike and Spring Mountain Road is currently posted with no pedestrian crossing signs, as there are no accommodations for pedestrian crossings. So the sidewalk project needs to enhance connectivity, and we've provided one or both options that could be included in the project. Option A is to actually provide a crosswalk across Gravel Pike. at the intersection with Spring Mountain Road. This would enhance safety for those crossing Gravel Pike between the art studio and the businesses at Delphi Junction. To do that, a signal permit plan will need to be amended with PennDOT. Signal poles will be needed on each side of the crosswalk to support pedestrian indicators and push buttons for crossing. PennDOT may require further signal upgrades and modernization with revisions to the permit plan. We'd have to investigate that. Also, the available right-of-way on both sides of Gravel Pike needs to be investigated. An easement or right-of-way would be required for an ADA-compliant walkway on the west side of Gravel Pike. And the no pedestrian restriction would remain for crossing Spring Mountain Road, as we don't have a suitable landing area over there for pedestrians. So that's talking about going over towards the hardware store, would still be a no pedestrian crossing. Option B would be to construct a 4-foot wide sidewalk along Spring Mountain Road that would connect to the existing sidewalk on the Spring Mountain Road Bridge, and you might be able to see that as a dashed line along Spring Mountain Road. Now, it would be a key component for providing future pedestrian connections between Spring Mountain and Delphi. There's some challenges. The distance between the lane edge and the existing guide rail varies right now from 2 to 6 feet. So to make this work, we likely need to modify the guide rail to be a consistent 2 feet from the lane edge and put the sidewalk behind the guide rail. We would probably need some either retaining wall to support fill near the westernmost culvert crossing, or we might investigate extending the length of the existing concrete box culvert. And the sidewalk across the bridge, so that's raised about 6 inches with a curb, and it's about 4.5 feet wide. So we'd want to extend that configuration to the existing opening in the guide rail, where the sidewalk would then transition to behind the guide rail. Any of these options will increase impervious surface areas, so stormwater management would also need to be addressed. We haven't yet evaluated stormwater management concepts for this project. But if the township is interested in pursuing these options, we can investigate some of the questions raised above, provide additional information on feasibility, provide cost estimates for developing plans, and generalized cost estimates for project construction.
I have a bunch of questions. My first one is, I'm just curious why the first option is 6 feet wide and the second option is 4 feet wide. I know the standard for sidewalks in our community is 4 feet.
So the 6 feet wide is desirable because it's a trail, and that's apparently a county minimum standard for a trail width. The reason I went down to 4 feet along Spring Mountain Road is it's just tough to fit anything in there. There's quite a drop off beyond the road, and we'd be putting a lot of fill in there if we went to the full desirable 6-foot width in that area.
So just to see that I understand, you're proposing 6 feet wide until you, if you do option B, that would still be the 6-foot wide sidewalk until Spring Mountain Road, when then that portion would go down to 4 feet.
Yes, that's correct.
And how, for option A, how long is that proposed trail?
For option, you mean for the base along the front of Delphi?
Yes.
I believe that was about 800 linear feet.
So is that going to be a longer than what we did on Goshen?
Similar in length.
But 4 feet wide, it would be more expensive.
This would be 6 feet wide, and
Sorry.
Goshen was 4 feet with some bump outs for past.
So do you have a ballpark or a range of what you think this would cost?
I did not prepare that at this point, no. At this point, I was developing the concept that the working committee was explaining and starting to put forth some of the challenges we're going to have with these concepts.
How much do you think it will actually, how much do you think it'll cost for you to actually put that together?
Well, first I need to know which options you want me to look at, but, and I'll also be consulting with the traffic engineer regarding interacting with the signal. So So by the time we estimate that out and estimate the costs, I'd say in the range of $2,700.
Would that be for both options or just one?
Well, that was really thinking about one. It seemed like option A with going across gravel pike was of the most interest to the group. So that's the one I was thinking of, where I'm gonna need to consult with a traffic engineer and possibly calls to PennDOT, figure out the signal permit plan concept. The other option, yeah, for a few hundred more dollars, I can add that estimate in as well. So like a round number like $3,000 would get us there.
Does anybody think that might be a good idea to get both options?
So for this, what we're looking at here, the idea is we get all of this ready to go for the grant shortly. So option A is somewhat concerning just because it then crosses gravel pike onto one property, goes across another property, and then gets to the art studio. So now we have 3 new property owners. And we've learned in the past, if everyone's not on the same page, the county looks like we're not organized. They don't think that we've done our homework. At this time, I think the base trail and then the Spring Mount connection seems like it's gonna move more people or be used. I know the art studio does use the Moshe's parking lot on occasion, so they would be interested in this, but I'm also not sure anyone would walk past where they want to go, across the street to come back. I don't see option A as, if it's something that could be added on in several years when it's proven that it's something people want, that might be a good time to come back and get that if that's an option. Otherwise, we have a lot of homework to do quickly to get 3 new property owners to see the vision.
Good point. I tend to agree with you.
Yeah,
We
this is-
had a subdivision over there, I believe, since I've been here, so one of the pieces of the investigation would be to go back through those records and see if there was any additional right-of-way acquired or offered at that time.
Yeah, sorry, Chuck, it sounds like you want to get in.
Oh, I was just gonna add to what Terry said, and also that option A would obviously mean that we have to interact with PennDOT and signalization, and I think that's gonna cost a boatload of money. So I would focus on option B and the base.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say this in front of our police officer, but I do cross 29 sometimes there to walk or run, and it is really dangerous. And I think there would be a lot of people, cover your ears, but I think there are a lot of people who live in the Spring Mount area who would appreciate a little more walkability. I mean, Spring Mount has long been a priority of ours, and we've been twisting ourselves into knots to try and figure out how to get people from A to B. So I think this would be one tiny piece of help. So yes, I like option B better as well.
I just have one question for our engineer. So you started off by indicating the southernmost parking spaces are on county land. Is that for both of those parcels there, the little triangle piece and the next piece next to it are county?
Yes, sir.
You think the applicant's aware of that? Or I should say, you think the owner's aware of that?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think another thing for me as we go forward, I'd like to know pretty quickly what the estimate for the cost of this project would be, because we have to do a 20% match, and we are actually in budget season, so it would be very helpful to know what that match would be, and hopefully it would not be too big. So it sounds like what we're looking for tonight is to authorize some money or some time for our engineer to provide an estimate on this. And you said $2,700 or less?
Do a not to exceed 27.
Not to exceed, is that acceptable to the board?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, would someone like to make that motion?
I so move.
Marley, you do have a hand raised,
Oh, I
sorry.
apologize. Brian, go ahead.
In front of Moshe's and along Spring Mount.
Good evening, Brian Hill, 11 Zieglerville Road. I know we're talking about sidewalks here, but an area that has been overlooked and discussed and kind of put away is that track between Moshe's parking lot and all the way down to Schwenksville. This is a somewhat pseudo trail that has been used. It is an area that people do use between on 29. We had a death on 29 there some years back. I don't know why we aren't looking at that as a connection. If you're talking about connecting two areas, I mean, I think that would be more apt for the communities, both between Lower Frederick and Schwenksville, to be connected. Again, the trail is almost there. There are areas that have washout, which would require some type of small bridge or some type of reinforcement or piping underneath of it. But I don't understand why we're talking about putting a sidewalk basically to a place to where it goes nowhere. I mean, really, it's walking in front of Moshe's. People walk in their driveway. I mean, we're talking about putting more to which the conservation and public open space, everyone's concerned about putting more on top of soil. We don't need to put much on any soil on that strip of land. It's gravel that can absorb water. It gives functionality to two locales. I'm really concerned is this grant specifically that we have to lay cement down? I really think it's something that we would benefit more from as a community. I know kids would probably use it getting back and forth between Schwenksville. My son has friends in Schwenksville. I can imagine that there are other young men like my son that would travel back and forth using that trail coming off of Springmount Road or something of that nature. But that's just my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. You bring up a really good point, and it's my understanding, and someone correct me if I misstate this, that this would be the first phase in what would potentially be a trail that would go all the way to Schwenksville. But this is the first part. This is the easiest part for us. And we hope that in the not too distant future, the trail would be completed. Can someone correct me, or am I stating that correctly?
Yeah, this is Chuck. I mean, yes, we have a working group in Lower Frederick as well as a working group in Schwenksville who are working on making the connection that Brian described. There's some property issues that are, in terms of who owns what. We believe the county owns everything. There's compelling evidence that the county owns everything, but their legal people need a little more time just to make absolutely sure that they do own everything. And that would be the first step in having that connection go forward. So yes, this piece here is just a small piece of a larger project that, Brian, we share the same goal, is to connect Lower Frederick and Schwenksville via a safe pedestrian or multi-use path.
Thank you.
All right, so I need a motion to authorize our township engineer to provide an estimate at a cost not to exceed $2,700.
Chuck Yeiser will make the motion. I'll make the motion, Chuck.
Thanks,
Okay.
Chuck. Okay, Noel, second? All right, so Supervisor Yarza made the motion, Supervisor Halter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Let's not forget, Carol, we got a big fill file for Phil if you have to put a 6-foot sidewalk along there. I think you keep forgetting about that fill file over there on South Station Road.
Yeah, and I just want to also state that I know boards have tried for years and years and years to put sidewalks in places that are really hard to put sidewalks and connections in. So whatever we can do, I think, is all for the good, because I think people want to go on foot or on bike these days. All right, next item is our ordinance hearing for the Verizon Cable franchise agreement. You going to take that, Peter?
Yes.
All right.
So as has been mentioned several times, the township joined a consortium of Bucks and Montgomery County municipalities to negotiate a new franchise agreement with Verizon. I believe due to the number of municipalities in this consortium, we got a 20% discount on the cost. This negotiation has led to a draft franchise agreement that is before you tonight. So tonight we have two items. One, we have a hearing to discuss Verizon's service to the community under the old franchise agreement and to discuss future needs or cable needs that the community may have. And then after that hearing, we have a second hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance, which would, just authorize the chair to execute the franchise agreement. The franchise agreement basically is the same as one that we are currently operating under. There has been some expansion of a definition of what the franchise fee is based on. There has been further expansion on ability of the township to audit Verizon to make sure that they're paying us the correct franchise fee, and to keep track, to make sure that Verizon provides good customer service to the township residents. The biggest change of this agreement probably is the fact that it's only for 5 years. I think our old agreement was either 10 or 12. But Verizon insisted on it being 5 years because I think they really don't want to be locked into something long-term due to the changes just in the industry with the impact of streaming. So with that being said, the first thing we need to do is open the hearing on Verizon's service to the community under the current franchise agreement to see if there's any comment from the public. Once that comment period is done, then we can just the board can move directly into considering adopting the ordinance.
So the hearing is open. Does anyone have any comments to make on the record about Verizon's performance during the current franchise agreement? That looks like a no.
So
Is the hearing
next,
closed?
then the hearing's closed, and then next we move to the second hearing, which is to consider ordinance authorizing execution of the franchise agreement.
All right, so that hearing is open. Again, anything from the board, anything from the public? That also looks like a no, so do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 2024-03, authorizing the execution of a cable franchise agreement between the township and Verizon, Pennsylvania LLC, and further authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the Township Board of Supervisors? I will so move. Do I have a second?
Chuck Geiser will second.
Who wants to take that?
Chuck seconds.
Thanks. Okay, so Supervisor Hexter made the motion, Supervisor Yiser made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, next item is the Cuddy Park Dog Improvement Project. Oh, sorry, do I have to close the hearing?
No, not officially. By the vote, you closed it.
Okay, hearing's closed. All right.
All right, so the dog park falls on me, which is a lot more fun than a Verizon agreement. Thank you. So before you on the slide right now is Cuddy Park on Colonial Drive. The dog park here is a very popular feature, and it can be seen on the right side of your screen. The entrance gate area of the dog park is surfaced in concrete. The concrete right here, if you can see my cursor. And then going away from that in the dog park, the park rises uphill. So it slopes uphill away from the entrance. So the board requested we evaluate potential solutions to drainage issues at the entrance. The surface runoff draining to this very active area creates an ongoing mud problem. We took some elevations with a level to assess drainage patterns and relative elevations. We were also asked to include access to the gate in our evaluation. Years back, the entrance drive had been surfaced with stone and millings to create a drivable surface for maintenance access. A chain was installed across the drive to prevent unauthorized access. Park visitors now either walk around the ends of the chain or walk atop the gravel drainage run between the parking area and the dog park. So we developed this concept plan that's presented this evening. We propose to create diversion berms that will direct field runoff away from the concrete entrance. This would be a gentle topsoil berm up to 6 inches high. Another component of the solution is to aerate both fields of the dog park. This aeration relieves soil compaction and allows the soil and the lawn to better absorb runoff. The walking path or maintenance access is already impervious. It's built of stone and millings, but it has not been maintained. The surface between the parking lot and the dog run gate would be milled and paved with 2 inches of asphalt. The chain that's there today would be removed and 2 removable bollards installed instead. These would be sufficient to restrict entry of unauthorized vehicles, but still be inviting for pedestrians and their pets. The completed improvements should be monitored. If the mud conditions are still unsatisfactory inside the dog run, an underdrain is proposed. That underdrain would run along the inside perimeter of the concrete pad and connect to the existing underdrain that's in a stone-filled trench in the park there. 6 inches of topsoil would be removed and blended with sand, then placed as amended soil in the heavy use area. This phased concept plan was developed as something that could be implemented by the Township Public Works with a budget of less than $5,000, not including the follow-up underdrain and amended soils. So that estimate was done for doing the work gradually with all in-house labor and some materials already on hand. I understand the township is now considering pursuing a grant for this work. And if that's the case, I suggest that we re-estimate this is a complete project and add the labor costs and all the materials. And then your contribution might be offset by some of these materials you have on hand and some in-house work by your staff. So that's my presentation. I'd be happy to address any questions.
So are you saying the 4,200 is just for the slight berm and the aeration? And the sidewalk and bollards?
Slight berm, aeration, macadam, and bollards, yes. And that's assuming that's actual material costs, subtracting out things that Public Works might already have on hand,
Right.
and not including all their labor.
Okay.
Carol, so to construct the berm, they would be bringing in soil?
Yes, bringing in a small amount of topsoil, that's correct. We actually had the topsoil cost in that $4,200 estimate because it was assumed that would be purchased as clean topsoil.
We can't take some from Colonial?
Well, there's a difference between just fill and actual topsoil.
Got it. I
So we
understand.
want to make sure that this is going to rapidly grow new grass and
Would any of the topsoil at Loctite be suitable?
no, because we don't have an MCCD approved erosion control plan.
Okay. So I'm just want to understand if we went and applied for the grant, which is a 50% match, and then we have to pay for the labor, are we better or worse off than just doing it ourselves? Because that's unclear to me.
If you were to apply for a grant, the labor that's contributed by your forces could be part of the match. I I haven't actually calculated what the materials would be, but it would certainly be less than $10,000.
$10,000 all up.
Right, for the material, for just materials.
And what would it
if you're
cost
contributing
if
labor.
we did it ourselves?
Well, that's why if you did it yourself to get it to the point we discussed, and then evaluate how it works, we are looking at an expenditure of about $4,200 plus the labor of your own Public Works Department. So they would be doing it as they have the time, and gradually making improvements to this park without spending very much money.
So I guess I'm not seeing the advantage of applying for the grant, but maybe I'm missing something.
Were you suggesting that we go for a bigger grant, a different grant, other than this one that's suggested here?
So when
To
I
do
put
like
this.
everything, including
When I,
that,
yeah, when I put this together, I was not putting it together with a grant in mind. I was putting it together as, how do we make this a very, how do we make this a minimal project so that it can be done in-house and we can accomplish this? The grant idea came after I did this work. If you were going to pursue a grant, I would re-estimate these costs, assuming that a contractor came in and did all this work at once, up to and including the amended soils and under drain. We'd come up with a full amount for your grant application, and then figure that your match would be some of the labor to offset, or, to meet that 50%. That would be my vision. I don't know if the manager had a different vision.
With the PICO grant, I just saw an opportunity for kind of a easy grant to get. So that's why I was proposing doing this grant application, especially since they extended it out through October 24. So we still had a window to get it in, but
so we could apply for the $5,000 grant to cover the $4,200 worth of work with a 50% match, which means it would fall somewhere between $2,100 and $2,500.
that's kind of what I was, yes.
Okay.
That's why I thought, and as Carol stated before, this is one of the easier grants to submit. It doesn't really require.
And then after the work is done, we monitor it, and if it doesn't work, then we go with the second part of this.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I want to thank Noel for doing the math. I really appreciate that, because I hadn't worked it out. Yeah, that does make a lot of sense now, and then depending on what happens, we can look at this in the future. So I'm okay with the grant submission.
What's the resolution number on this?
That would be 2024
3?
R-11.
11. Anyone else have any questions or comments on this proposed grant submission?
No.
Nope.
I'm sorry, yeah. So in here, do we cover the shade area as part of the grant?
Oh, so one of the things that from the Park and Rec Board conversation was a shade cover. The current shade cover, I think we're going to need to have more discussion. The quote we got would exceed this 10,000. So that's something I know they've been looking into. There's like pet grants and stuff out there. So I added it to the summer just so that, it didn't get lost. But that was something that was kind of an add-on at first. PICO is throwing out like a $50,000 kind of grant. Our project wouldn't meet that requirement. They're gonna give that to one project out there. So I pulled the shade part out of this one because like I said, the quote we got exceeds that. So, but that's why I mentioned it.
Warren, go ahead. Yep, just unmute yourself. Are you trying to, can you unmute him? I mean, I guess if you can't unmute, you could put your question in the chat or send Jason a text or. You getting anything from Warren? Oh, fabulous. Okay, go ahead.
It wouldn't let me unmute until I agreed that the meeting was being recorded. Okay, so my question is, Carol, in your plan, does it mention anything about the actual living turf?
I'm sorry, what's your question?
The turf, you know, we have a mud area, there's no grass. Does your plan at any point address planting turf that's going to hold up to the, you know, the abuse of the dog?
So the goal of the first stages of the plan, aeration of the soil and construction of the berm, is to reduce the amount of water that gets to that to in front of that concrete pad where it's so muddy.
I understand that.
There was seeding and mulching, or at least seeding and temporary, straw mulch associated with the berm construction. The muddy area could also be seeded at that time. But we weren't talking about any sod type turf.
Well,
if it
I'm
did,
not talking about sod type turf either, but right now you have a situation where there's mud, and one of the issues is that there is no grass, and there's not going to be grass regardless of what you do with the water until some grass gets planted. So I'm just wondering if that aspect of it is in your plan.
yes, seeding areas would be part of the berm installation, yes.
And then you're going to specify a sports turf mix that's going to be durable and hold up to the dogs, I guess.
It's a standard seed mix, Warren. There's no specialty to it. The next step after that is if that does not thrive because things are still too wet, the next stage is actually to do amended soils with an underdrain to better drain that area.
Okay. Well, one of the issues with that place, aside from the drainage and the compaction, is the fact that there never was turf planted there. It was never seeded. It's just whatever came up in that field. And there are specific types of seed mixtures that are appropriate for this type of thing. You know, not just the same thing that you would normally broadcast on somebody's backyard lawn.
Well, I think we're going to have something with a high component of rye so that we can get a very fast growing grass, because it's going to be hard to keep people off of that very long.
Right. Right. It'll be hard to establish it at all if you can't rotate it and try to grow the grass in one section at a time. But yeah, my question was whether you addressed that in your plan. I guess you sort of answered that question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, would someone like to make the motion to adopt Resolution 2024-R-11, authorizing application to the 2024 PICO Green Region Open Space Program for the Cuddy Park Dog Park Stormwater Project in an amount not to exceed $5,000, and further to authorize the township manager to sign any paperwork to complete the application.
Chuck Geiser will make the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second? I will, go ahead.
I'll second.
Thank you. Supervisor Yiser made the motion. Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. That brings us to award of bid for the Springmount Road Sidewalk Project. Just to remind everybody, this is money we got from the Monco 2040 grant last year to have a sidewalk connecting the township building with the firehouse.
Okay. 7 bids were received for the Spring Mountain Road Sidewalk project. These bids were opened on September 18th. The lowest responsible bidder is determined to be G&B Construction Group Incorporated with a total bid of $286,177. G&B Construction Group is familiar to the township as they completed the Goshen Road Sidewalk project for Lower Frederick in 2020. We have also very recently worked with them on a project in another municipality and find them to be a reputable contractor and therefore recommend that the board consider award.
And when do we expect work to start? Is it too late to do it now?
Well, we're working out utility poles with the utility companies, and the contractor is going to have to acquire precast concrete features that are going to have a lead time. So I really think this is going to be primarily a spring project, but I look forward to talking to the contractor about schedule after award.
And when is the deadline with the grant to complete?
The deadline on the contract is 2 months before the deadline in the grant. I think the one was May and the other was the end of June. One was the end of April and the other was the end of June.
Okay, so hope we don't have too wet a spring.
Yes.
Any questions from the board?
No, but I would like, Jason, could you, what's our match for this grant?
It was 111,000.
539.
Thank you.
And that will be coming from our ARPA funds?
ARPA funds.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think what happened was the limit on this grant program is $200,000. And so normally the match would be 20%, but because it was over $300,000, our match is larger. Any other questions from the board? Are we ready to vote on this?
Sure.
So the motion would be, I move to accept the bid from G&B Construction, which is the lowest bidder, in the amount of $286,177 for the Spring Mount Sidewalk project, and further authorize the township manager to sign all necessary paperwork to complete the contract. So Chuck, you made the motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Supervisor Yeiser made the motion. Supervisor Holter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, the next item, G, appointment of a code enforcement zoning officer, building code floodplain administrator firm. The board is, I think we're going to table that for the next meeting. We still have some questions about the potential new firm. That brings us to item H, I'm sorry, it's been a long day. Escrow release number 4, Sandbrook subdivision and initiation of maintenance period.
I think that's me. The applicant has completed installation of a driveway pipe on Lot 2 of this 3-lot subdivision. We are recommending consideration of escrow release number 4 in the amount of $11,500, with payment to the applicant adjusted by any amounts due for unpaid invoices and also adjusted for accrued interest. This closes the project, which will then be under the 18-month maintenance period.
Any questions from the board?
No.
All right, well then, would someone like to make the motion to authorize release of escrow number 4? It's the amount of $11,500. And then to initiate the 18-month project maintenance period, which would start today.
Also move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Supervisor Holter made the motion. Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
1 second.
Oh, sorry.
With the motion, I think it should read the whole thing.
Okay.
You're authorizing to release escrow for Sandbrook subdivision, the amount of $11,500 with payment to applicant adjusted by unpaid invoices to the township, verified by value engineering memo dated September 13, 2024. And further initiate the 18-month project maintenance period starting October 1st, 2024.
Thank you. I
think you
apologize. That is
Need to have the unpaid invoices in there.
as more accurate. So all those in favor, we're okay moving forward with this? Okay. All those in favor of the full motion read by Supervisor Yiser signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for that correction. Oh, go ahead.
So, am I correct to say that 15% of the original construction cost, Carol, is being held for 18 months?
That would be correct, yes.
So, my only question is, the project's been done for 3 years, the remainder of the project. There was an issue with the driveway swale that was in the original design that we built per design. It iced up. We all know the story about that. We went back, we put the pipe in. So now the rest of the project is going to be in maintenance for 4.5 years. It's already been in maintenance for 3 years. You know, there's nothing wrong with the rest of the project.
So I'll let the solicitor take over if I misstate anything, but Mr. Sandbrick, I believe that the thing you're asking for, you'd want to submit a written request to the board for a waiver of the requirement to post the maintenance bond, which was part of your developer's agreement.
Well,
And they can't do that tonight without it actually being an
Right.
agenda item. And the solicitor can follow through if I misstated anything.
No, that's perfectly correct. Yeah, we need something in writing, Mr. Sandbrick. And under the new Sunshine Act, we can't add something like this at the last minute, so we'd have to push it off 3 weeks.
and I'm just here because of this is where we're at, but.
Right.
And I appreciate where we're at and we got this far, but, so I guess if you understand what I'm saying is that the remainder of the project is done for 3 years. So my request would be.
Yeah, I don't think Carol and I are fighting off your logic here. It's just a process
So
thing.
written-
State law
written request.
requires you to give us something in writing, requires us to have it on the agenda at
Gotcha.
least 24 hours in advance.
And I don't have a problem with the pipe being escrowed or maintenance for 18 months because it's new. But the rest of the project has been there for 3 years. So put something in writing and give it to the township.
And we'll hear at the end of the month.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item is the final payment release to Dane and Son Construction, Inc. for the sewer plant flood barrier project. We heard about that earlier. It's completely installed. I don't know if we need any background on this.
I'll give you a quick
Oh, go
paragraph
ahead.
if you'd like. A flood barrier system was installed last month at the wastewater treatment plant. The Public Works Department has completed a test run of barrier installation this past week to confirm proper fit and suitability of all components. All final documents have been provided, and tonight we recommend consideration of the final payment in the amount of $8,754. This project, I believe, was paid for with FEMA mitigation funding.
Are there any questions from the board?
No.
Okay, so the motion would read, I move to authorize release of funds for payment application number 2 in the amount of $8,754 to Dane and Son Construction, Inc., verified by Value Engineering memo and summary sheet dated September 26, 2024, for the Lower Frederick Sewer Plant Flood Barrier Project. I'll go ahead and make that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Supervisor Hexter made the motion. Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, next one should be simple. So we're coming up on our 250-year of being the United States of America. That's in 2026. Sorry, I'm taking your thunder. Is that okay? I think this will be pretty straightforward. So there's a Pennsylvania Commission for the United States semi-quincentennial, which means 250, established by the governor in 2018. And Montgomery County is asking all 62 municipalities to consider joining other local leaders in passing the America 250 PA resolution. So This would be adopt resolution 2024 dash, that's what I thought.
12, yeah.
12. Supporting the Pennsylvania Commission for the United States Semi-Quincentennial America 250 PA. Any questions from the board on that?
Do you think maybe we want to read exactly what it is?
All righty. The Pennsylvania Commission for the United States Semi-Quincentennial, you made that word a couple more times, huh? America 250 PA was established by the legislature and governor in 2018 to plan, encourage, develop, and coordinate the commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States, Pennsylvania's integral role in that event, and the impact of its people on the nation's past, present, and future. America 250 PA hopes to engage all citizens of the Commonwealth from all 67 counties, bring the Commonwealth's history into the conversation so Pennsylvanians can better understand the origins and multiple perspectives of issues facing our Commonwealth and nation today, use history to encourage and inspire future leaders, celebrate the contributions of Pennsylvanians to our Commonwealth's history, but also to our nation's history, leave a lasting impact on the next generation, and to spark an interest in which will ignite the drive for them to appreciate all the triumphs, trials, and tribulations to which contributed to the Commonwealth, for which they are now writing their own history. All right.
I guess we can make a motion then.
Would someone like to move to adopt Resolution 2024-R-12, supporting the Pennsylvania Commission for the United States 250th?
Also move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Supervisor Halter made the motion. Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I got it.
Said aye.
Yeah. I'm just
Aye.
curious, how many municipalities in Montgomery County have joined so far? Do we know?
I don't know. I know we're a couple of years behind Bucks County because I know I was hearing about this a few years back. So
Okay.
I hadn't heard it come through Montgomery since I was here. So
Well, we're getting close.
yeah, I think that's why they're making the push now.
All right, next item is approval for the quote for the township building front door assembly replacement.
Okay, so I received quotes, I've received updated quotes, and none of the costs changed from the 8/27 work session when I received a consensus from the board to move forward with getting the updated quotes. We received 3 quotes. One from Alderfer Glass Company in the amount of $19,495, one from Huts Glass Company Inc. for $21,600, and the J-Door Company for $22,999. Public Works is aware that they would have minor work as part of this project. It's mostly drywall. As the estimate falls under the bidding threshold, the board could choose from any of the estimates, and I am recommending this to be paid out of the ARPA COVID relief funds.
Are you recommending we go with the lowest quote?
Yes.
Is there any reason not to?
No.
Okay. Any discussion or questions from the board?
The lock sets would be what, still keys?
It'll be key for now. That's kind of a project we're gonna have to keep working on, Chuck. I'm just not able to get that together.
Understood.
But these doors will be set up that when we move that way, that'll be an easy installation for these doors, because that was one of the things we told all the vendors with the door installation, so.
Will these be, or will they be, or will they not be ADA compliant?
I mean, when you say ADA compliant,
You know, like easier for,
so they're, the best reference I got is they're like the Wawa doors.
so do these quotes include that?
These are commercial doors. They don't make non-ADA compliant commercial doors
Okay,
at
so
this
it's
point in
across the
time.
board, it's an industry standard, that's
Yeah,
how they're going.
yeah. I mean, I haven't looked, I don't know for a fact, but I'd be shocked if they weren't.
Go ahead.
Dan Orff, Kratz Road. Just a quick question along the lines of what Noel was asking. In addition to being ADA compliant, I think she was referring to, will these have the opening or the ability to take on the opening feature that a lot of modern doors have, where you push the button so somebody in a wheelchair could get in without having to first roll themselves back in on it? You know what I'm talking about? The red button, the buttons you push.
I understand the button. That's not,
that would have to be built right in as they do it with that special door.
Okay.
You're not going to be able to modify those to that.
Yeah, because I think that's what you were, and those
No,
doors
yeah,
have an
that's
issue
exactly
with
what
trying
I
to
was
get people.
Sort of referring to, okay. Does this cost any, do you foresee any additional costs at all?
no, I mean, no, I mean, I think part of getting the updated quotes, I mean, the Public Works walked each through to try to, so it was kind of apples to apples, like what our expectation, it's going to replace both doors. So I have no reason to believe there's going to be additional cost as there, we might be looking at some minor drywall, like I said, because I think you guys caught that at the previous meeting, as far as, is Public Works aware that they're going to have a little bit of work, but I believe that'd be a very minor cost.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing pretty much, and I can attest, the door's a pain.
Oh, I've
It's
gotten
the lock.
complaints.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
it's the original door, it's the lock, I just don't know if just replacing the lock, if we're not gonna get, just replacing the lock. I don't see anything wrong with the doors other than just the lock.
Our doors currently, there's people who can barely, I mean, I've watched people who have struggled trying to open the doors.
So
And
they're too heavy.
they are to a point where, I know we had to adjust the one inside. It's getting to the point where like the one door hardly opens at all. So it is a struggle, and I have received that complaint a handful of times from residents who have a hard time opening the doors.
I guess my question is, are we going to get a new lock, so we'll have new keys, so maybe all those keys floating around the township, we can pass out new keys? What's going to happen?
Well, I think we can take care of that on the back end
super.
of this.
I don't know who that is. It says iPhone. Do you have a question? Can you identify yourself, please?
Hi, sorry, it's RJ Mazza with the Public Works. I don't know why my name doesn't work on here, but I just wanted to add in that between all three quotes that we had gotten for the doors, all three doors are going to be, or all three quotes had the installer adding in any electrical wiring for future improvements if we wanted to ever switch to key fobs and stuff like that. That to deal with the whole key thing too. And then also just with prior years of construction and stuff like that. For ADA doors, it's any doorway that's 36 inches or greater is fine for ADA, as long as the opening is 36 inches or wider. So that is all I had.
Thank you, RJ, that was helpful.
Yep.
All right, if there are no more questions, we're ready to vote to accept I assume the low quote. Yes, no, maybe. All right, I will go ahead and make the motion. I move to accept the estimate from Alder Fair Glass Company in the amount of $19,495 to replace the front doors for the township building's main entrance and further authorize the township manager to sign any paperwork necessary to complete the project. Do I have a second?
Also move.
Thank you. Supervisor Hexter made the motion, Supervisor Halter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I just want to
Aye.
clarify, this is ARPA funds as well.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Any
I said aye,
opposed?
I said aye, Marla.
Oh, thank you. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Next item is approval for a quote for the township building generator switch.
Okay, so as the board, as we made the board aware previously, the generator for the township building needs to be manually connected to the building, provide power along with the generator itself being manually started. The estimate that you have is an automatic transfer switch, which is needed, and this needs to be ordered. Modern Power Systems installed the generators at the pump station and does the preventive maintenance for all of our generators. This is budgeted out of the ARPA COVID relief funds. It does look like, and we struggled to get this one quote. We got Tommy got a verbal quote of $15,000 for the installation of the transfer switch, which does not include the amount of $3,150. So we're gonna need to get two other quotes, aren't we?
Well, isn't it under the 22,000 and change threshold, though? No, it's 3,150.
Well, so the switch which we need to get ordered is $3,150. The installation will be an additional up to $15,000. Yeah, and I know we've had a hard time trying to get the installation quote. It's kind of
but we have a Generac generator. We have to use a Generac switch. Is this the only Generac supplier in the area?
It's who we. I mean, it's. I don't know if they're the only Generac, but that's who we use. That's who we use currently for all of our generators.
Jason, your mic is off.
Modern is who we use for our for the pump stations and the generators that we have at the sewer plant, and then our generator here.
What I would recommend is have the board approve this, or if it wishes to approve this, contingent upon the solicitor ensuring that it complies with the bidding requirements. And if it doesn't, it's going to come back, we'll have to come back to you.
So just to be clear, and I'm wondering if I'm thinking the same as you, is that it's one whole project?
Yes.
Between the 15 and the 3150, they shouldn't be separated, but we just want to make sure.
We just want to make sure, but.
Because if there's only one place you can get the part.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, if this is a situation where we have to get this part from this supplier, then it's a sole source purchase, and we don't have to, bid it out.
Okay.
Likewise, if we can get them to nail down the actual cost and maybe get them to nail it down to like 9,000 or under what is necessary for 3 telephonic bids, then we're fine.
Right.
So yeah, there's a couple of things that I just need to look into, and hopefully we can, we won't have to worry about this again.
So, and just to clarify, the total between the 3150 and the 15,000 installation is 18,650, which takes us over the bidding threshold. You would need 3 telephonic or 3 written quotes.
Correct.
Okay.
Just like we got earlier with the doors.
And we don't have the labor in writing, the quote.
Now, Tommy got that today. Which is why it's not in the original summary. No, No, Becky added it because we finally got the installation. So originally it was just for the switch because I wanted to get the switch ordered. So yeah, the labor, that all came down today. But like I said, it's been a struggle trying to get one quote. So
Yeah,
So
I'd recommend, making a motion conditioned upon us making sure it complies with state bidding laws.
So what you're saying, if this is the only place we can get to do the work, we're okay being over the bidding amount?
No,
The quote amount.
if this is the only place that we can get this particular switch, and this particular switch is the only switch we can use to do this, then yes, it could be $100,000, we'd still be fine. But if this is a switch we can buy anywhere, and if there's a half dozen Generac, suppliers that we could, talk to and try to get a different price from, then we need to call around.
All right, so maybe this will go forward and maybe we'll be revisiting it at our next meeting. But we'll hope for the best. We'll hope it'll all be okay, right?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so, well, what's happened with the 15,000 quote for the installation? Why is that not part of this?
If you don't.
it's because that just came down today. So that's why it wasn't part of the original motion when I put this together on Friday.
I think it's just an FYI, right? Is that why it's here?
For now, yeah, because we don't actually have a written quote. So I'd like to get this, if we can move forward with the switch, I guess, or I guess we got to wait because it's the whole project still. I guess that's the problem. Just wait.
So what I'm hearing is we need to wait. All right, so we're going to table this item till we get more information. All right. I think just turn your page. Next item is approval, is a retroactive approval of a 206 Fulmer Road wall repair.
So this was damage done by the township back in January 2024. One of our trucks ran into the wall at 206 Fulmer Road. As you may recall, we had problems with the resident. She did not want to submit the claim through her insurance as requested. The board authorized the work to be done prior to this meeting, and it was completed on 9/20/2024.
So just for the public, in the interest of expediting the repair of this wall for the resident, we are approving it after the fact, so we did not have to delay the repair. So the motion would be to authorize retroactively the estimate provided by John, I can't pronounce that name. Minnick, thank you. Masonry Contractors LLC in the amount of $2,825 to repair a wall at 206 Fulmer Road damaged by the township, and further authorize the township manager to sign the paperwork necessary to complete the project. Do I have a motion?
Also move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Supervisor Holter made the motion. Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. Next item, 2025 Police MMO. That stands for Minimum Municipal Obligation.
So this is a yearly requirement, needs to be authorized and accepted by the board at a public meeting. I would sign as the pension administrator. Based on our January 1, 2023 valuation, the plan is funded at over 129.4%. And this is the uniform plan. This puts the plan in outstanding position. What's also helpful is our state aid for the pension plan has covered 69.1% of the police MMO since 2018. Based on this year's estimated payroll and the 2023 valuation, the 2025 uniform MMO will be $47,573.
Sorry. So again, this is something we have to do every year. The motion would be, excuse me, I move to accept the 2025 MMO as presented by PSAT's Trustees Insurance and Retirement Services and authorize the manager as pension administrator to sign the MMO for the police pension plan. Sounds like we don't have any questions or comments from the board. Would someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Supervisor Byrd made the motion, Supervisor Holter made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is a grinder pump O&M agreement for 56 Riverside Avenue.
Considering the length of the meeting and the agenda, you could vote on all three of these agreements coming up.
Okay,
in one
so
vote,
that'd
because
be-
they're all our standard agreements.
Also at the same time.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, thank you. So we'll do three motions in one to approve a grinder pump O&M agreement for 56 Riverside Avenue, a stormwater O&M agreement for 46 Little Road, and a on-lot sewer O&M agreement for 15 Gerloff Road, and for all of those, further authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the Board of Supervisors. Okay, would someone like to make that motion?
Also move.
Thank you, and I will second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. That brings us to item R. We have to vote on this or just accept it? Okay, so we have a resignation, Mary Kratz from the Park and Recreation Board for the term ending 12/31/2025, and Jason Cosco from the Open Space Committee for the term ending 12/31/2025. So so we'll accept that. Yes, everyone? Okay, so the board accepts those resignations. All right. Next item is fire police requests for St. Mary's and Heidelberg. So this would be for requests from St. Mary's Catholic School for their October 19 event, and for Heidelberg UCC for an October 26 event. Would someone like to make the motion to authorize the use of Lower Frederick Fire Company Fire Police?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Supervisor Sachs made the motion, Supervisor Byrd made the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. That brings us to our fiscal year 2025 budget introduction.
So this is the 2025 fiscal year budget introduction. Our general fund tax revenue, as of 9/30, we've received 87.8% tax collected per our 2024 budget. As you can see here, the blue bars are the budgeted numbers, the orange bars are the actual as of 9/30, and then the gray bars would be what we're projecting. And as you can see, it came up earlier with EIT. We are projecting EIT to come well above our budget for this year, $1.043 million. Real estate tax and real estate transfer. Real estate tax as of 9/30. The real estate tax is property tax paid by property owners in Lower Frederick. This includes a general tax, fire tax, and ambulance tax. In 2021, it was $746,474. 2022, $736,695. 2023, $748,474. And So far in 2024, 858,436, which is 97.2% of the real estate tax budget. Real estate transfer is the tax that is paid during the settlement of a home/property sale in Lower Frederick. In 2021, we collected 140,226. 2022, 172,356. 2023, 161,627. And so far in 2024, 135,204, which is 77.4% of the 2024 real estate transfer tax budget. Earned income tax is the tax of earned income of township residents. In 2021, we received 707,898. 2022, 744,515. 2023, 807,260. And so far in 2024, 828,699, which is 81.3% of our 2024 earned income tax budget. As of 9/30, we've received 86.6% of our general fund. That doesn't match. We are currently projected to collect over 2.7% more revenue than our overall 2024 revenue budget. Other funds revenue for the sewer fund as of 9/30, we're at $1.352 million, which is $364,000 over budget, and it's 110.8% of the revenue budget. We're projecting this out to be $1.637 million, which would be 34.1% over our 2024 budget. For the open space fund, as of 9/30, we've collected $93,760, which is $11,518 over budget. This is 86.1% of our 2024 revenue budget. We're projecting that to be $120,422, which would be 10.6% over our 2024 budget. Liquid fuels fund, so far we've collected $187,622, which is $19,000 over budget. This is 111.2% of the 2024 revenue budget, and we're projecting that to be $196,000, which would be 16.72% over this year's budget. As of 9/30, we received 97.8% of our revenue budget for these funds. We're currently projected to collect over 27.9% more revenue than our overall 2024 revenue budget for these sewer, open space, and liquid fuels funds. Expense summary. Our major expenses so far in 2024 would be the receipt of the 2 police vehicles. The police hired a new officer, Officer Nark. Public Works received an F-350 truck and plow. We oil and chipped 4.94 miles of road. We did Meadow Lane and Alexander Drive culvert replacement. The Zeekerville Road swale and inlet project. Administratively, we install Office 365 upgrade and a server migration to the cloud. We updated our 2022 and 2023 codification. We completed the sewer plant flood barrier project, and it was the completion of the Fulmer Road Riverside Avenue sewer extension. As of 9/30, we spent 64.7% of the 2024 budget. We are projecting to finish 4.5% under the overall expense budgets for the general sewer, liquid fuels, open space, and ARPA COVID relief funds. These are our projected fund balances for the end of this year. As you can see, the general fund we're projecting to be $2.15 million. And as you can see now, we have our capital funds with sewer and the general. What to expect in the 2025 budget. 2025 to 2032 budget projection for all funds. Road projects, police and public works vehicles/equipment, township property security. This would be the door entry and security cameras. The Spring Mountain Sidewalk Project. Coble Park Rehabilitation Phase 1. Multiple subdivision new home construction and how that will impact our permits and also affect the sewer fund. Sewer line extension planning. This would be for the Zeekoville Road. Sewer line I&I preventive maintenance. What to expect in 2023 budget continued. Potential deficit budgets for general and sewer funds. Continued funding of general and sewer fund capital improvement plans and the review of future projects to improve township properties. Continued review of staffing and tools to support growing community needs. This is our fiscal year. As previously reported, I did get behind, so the board got the budget draft number 1 this morning, and we're doing the introduction at tonight's meeting as opposed to last week. So we will be having the fiscal year 2025 budget presentation at our October 22nd work session. And then as you can see, November 6th, we would be looking for authorization to advertise that budget. And then the budget would be available for public review with adoption at the December 3rd general meeting. Any questions?
So if you go to the timeline, Jason, so at our
Yeah.
next meeting, we'll have all the actual spreadsheets with everything.
Yes.
Okay. And then part of what to expect in 25, Springmount Sidewalk Project, wouldn't that be fully funded for
So
24?
So it's fully funded, but I needed to budget because we have this is the carryover for ARPA funds.
Okay.
Plus, we are going to have to pay for the costs up front to get reimbursed from the county. So that was something that it's the same for the Coble Park rehabilitation. So we didn't have that in this year's budget because I was not fully aware of that grant. So that's something, it ends up being a pass through, but it'll elevate our expense and our revenue.
Okay. And then I know a couple times bridges have come up that we own. Was that part of road projects?
So we've got like Girl off-road bridges in the future. We are looking at a potential dirt and gravel. That's not a grant, that's a program for our Simmons Road Bridge. That's not currently built into the current draft that you have, but that's something that we've been kind of working on behind the scenes. So there are bridge where we feel we had bridge work. I believe Second Avenue is still in there, but those are capital projects that are kind of in the future. And that's some of that, and that's stuff we would be trying to find grant funding or alternate funding.
Okay.
Chuck, do you have any questions?
No, other than, I should say, yes, I do, I guess. So Jason, as you mentioned, you did send out a draft budget to the board. I guess it was today.
Yes.
So obviously you'll be available if one of us has questions.
Oh, for sure.
Now
I'll be expecting over the next 3
and
weeks.
the next time we meet, right? On the
I'm sorry, Chuck,
22nd.
what?
Is that right?
What was the last thing you said after you'll be available for questions?
Oh, I just said that you'll be, I mean, it seems like a pretty aggressive timeline to, to get to November 6th. So, if I have questions between now and the 22nd on what you've sent us today, I'm just verifying that you'll be available to us if I call you up on the phone, right?
Yes. And as you may recall, when I did the timeline, we do have flexibility. We would have to have a special meeting in December. So if we don't meet this timeline because the board's not ready to advertise the budget, we still have essentially an extra month, the month of December, to get that budget adopted. It's the 20-day time frame, I think, between the December and and where we scheduled our work session for December, where we
Right.
would have to have the special meeting, because there's not 20 days between those two meetings. But we do have some time, if the board's not comfortable, after the October 22nd and what would be getting presented at that November 6th meeting, Chuck.
Well, as long as we're not meeting on the 24th of December, that's fine.
When is our November work session? Wouldn't that be a better option if we had to, we could authorize advertising?
I believe.
And
even-
that should give us plenty of time to our December work session without having to have a.
Because we bumped the work session up a week because of, I believe it, because I think it fell on Christmas Eve. We
Yeah.
won't hit, I can't get it advertised in that 20-day time frame. That's why I kind of use the December, the general meeting. Because I think
When's our November work session?
Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
And so the 26th to, when is it in December?
December 17th.
I think that's enough time.
It's leaving me a small window to ensure that that I can get that advertised in the paper, because it's got to get advertised in the newspaper. Yes, it physically could be possible. I'll do what the board wants me to do,
Okay,
so.
Well, anyway, we'll see how it goes. Can you just take the presentation down?
Oh, God. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought okay.
Okay, that brings us to public comment. Is there any public comment? Okay. That brings us to supervisor comment. Do we have any
Nothing.
supervisor comment?
Nope.
All right. This meeting's adjourned.